This is Death or Prison, brought to you by leanonmeusa.org. We bring you stories of hope and encouragement.
Hello, I'm Joe Pryor, President and CEO at Crossroads Prison Ministries. For over 40 years, we have provided correspondence Bible lessons and caring mentors to people in prisons and jails. I want to invite you to join us on this journey. You may ask, why should I sign up for a correspondence Bible study? Well, the answer is simple. Just as it is important to strengthen your body with good food and exercise, and your mind with new learning opportunities, it is also vital that you spend quality time growing your faith in God. Crossroads is a Christian program, but open to you. Whether you are a believer in Jesus Christ looking to strengthen your faith or simply exploring faith and what it can mean to your life, we're here for you. We want to come alongside you as we study God's Word together. We don't charge for our program. All you need to do is write to us at the address on the screen, and we will begin sending you lessons. I encourage you to give us a try. Thank you, and I hope to see you as a student very soon.
Welcome to the Death or Prison podcast, brought to you by Lean On Me USA. I'm your host, Oswald Newbold, and here in the studio I have the Honorable Elmo Mo Golden.
That's right, brother. Glad to be here.
We have a very special guest today, Joe Miller, a gentleman and a scholar. Can't wait to hear his story. He did 35 years, but you would never know it. And Joe, I like to say welcome.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. We'd like to go along this journey. When I hear you did 35 years, that's more years than some of the listeners even been walking this earth. And I think it's a powerful story that people would love to hear. And if you don't mind, could you let us know that journey coming all the way back from being a youngster?
Sure. And, you know, I because most of our past really doesn't touch people a whole lot, I'd like to just begin in county jail with a grand jury indictment being read to me through the county bars. It was 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping in the first degree, midnight burglary, and a host of charges that were dropped. They always do that. So if you beat them on the big ones, they got something to get you on the little ones. So there I was, and I thought, how did I ever get here? I was raised in a good home in Pennsylvania. In high school, I was in college prep. My junior year, I was the member of the state champion track team. Senior year, I was captain of our first ever cross-country team. We were undefeated, so we ran at Penn State. We had free tickets at Penn State, so after the meet, we saw Penn State host Syracuse. Unfortunately, it was Larry Zonka's senior year at Syracuse, so we didn't win that one. That went on to Penn State, and then Lock Haven University. I dropped out because I got a girl pregnant, and I went to the Piper Aircraft first, but then went downstate, worked on the docks. And then I went in the Air Force. I was a surgery tech for 4 years during Vietnam. A surgery tech in Headquarters Command in Washington, D.C. And after 4 years there, I was actually hired as a physician assistant in surgery. And for a couple of months there in the local area. And that's where my downfall started happening. And but while I was raised in high school, man, I had some of the smartest kids that I've ever known. I was in with Jeff Parsons, he took his SATs in 10th grade and had perfect 800s. All 3 scores were 800. He went on to go to MIT Prep in his junior year. In my 9th grade, I actually took all my math for high school and college in 1 year. So it was like an advanced group of people that I was in with. It was kind of a protected environment. I didn't know anybody that was criminal. I didn't know anybody that was doing anything. That didn't last, though.
When you say you were around scholars already at a young age, you know, that community which seemed to be elite as far as the education was concerned.
Actually, they were. Gernot Maurer actually was a state champion, high hurdles, broad jump, and the triple jump. And Gerard Zeller went on to become a state's attorney. And it just goes on and on. These were just like hot, top-notch people. I felt so out of place. I came from the tough side of town, across the tracks, didn't really fit in. They all had parents that drove them to the high school. When they got home, the parents spent time doing their homework with them. I didn't have that. I had to walk 2 miles to school, 2 miles back. And so I didn't really fit in with them. So I would stand with the guys from where I lived. And of course, we were always doing bad stuff. And I got cut on my arm with a knife. So they weren't the same crew at all. All of my cousins were best fighters in 3 counties. So I was in a place I didn't belong, and with people. If I'd have been smart, man, I would have stayed with the ones that were doing something with their life. You know what I mean? I just didn't. I was misled by people I felt more comfortable with.
Right.
So changing your peer group, am I hearing this correct? Changing your peer group at the time, it influenced the way you started to move in life?
Yes.
And you
yes.
regret that. And I totally understand, and I'd love to hear more, because that's a powerful thing. I did that in my life, and I understand how that could influence people, right? And I'd love to hear, where did Joe go from that point? You changed your peer group, and where did life start to go, or how did life start to go at that point?
Okay, I worked on the docks for 2 years, and there was a different group of people. That was hard work, but I really liked hard work. But then I went in the Air Force, and that's where it really started, because in the services during Vietnam, there was a lot of drugs going on. There was people that sold drugs, even on the base. Because like I was in Andrews Air Force Base, which is in Washington, D.C., but there were people smuggling in drugs with the dead bodies coming back from Vietnam. So that's where I started hanging around people I really didn't need. That's where I started using drugs, started drinking. And I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't have a growing up that was experienced with that. So I didn't know how to cope with it. And because I dropped out of college, I didn't really have a future that was one that I could have had.
Joe, you didn't say much about your parents. Did you go to church, or were you?
Oh, no. You know what? I was a card-carrying heathen. We never went to church. I didn't know what church was all about.
You had both parents in the home?
Yeah, just in the house, but they never went to church. They never went to any of my track meets or any of my cross-country meets or any of my football. They were, I guess, emotionally, they weren't there. Physically, they were there, but that's about it. So there was
I mean, what was the discipline like? Were they? Was it just Joe, go do what you want to do? Were the rules and orders?
Well, I'm not sure, because I was the oldest, and so I had to carry the brunt end of things.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually, because we had too many people in the family to sit at the kitchen table, so I sat at a little counter, just so that they had a place to sit at. There was some bad periods.
How many was that, Joe? You said it wasn't enough. How many was that?
There was 3 boys and 1 girl, and a little table. But I came home one time and I saw my father with a gun at his head, that was kind of traumatic to see that going on. He didn't commit suicide then. He did later on. But he was like a fighter. And so, he hit a steel cabinet, drove in the whole side. I started to go after him. He kind of challenged us, stay away. I'm not going to hurt your mother now. Because I was ready to go to war, even though he was bigger and tougher than I was.
Mm-hmm.
So it had kind of a violent, but it was a passive-aggressive sort of violence. I didn't see it till he was drunk.
Right.
Then it came out. But my mother was sort of a quiet person, just stayed there. She always go to the other room and sew. She'd been a sewing machine, so we didn't have much to do with her. And so my father was a quiet person, though. When he wasn't drinking, he'd just sit there. There was no communication. He was just there. That was it. But he wasn't violent. I didn't get abused as I was growing up. I got smart pretty early on. I didn't want to get beat, so I just did the right thing.
Yeah. It seems like, but you kind of describing that there was a lack of love in the house.
There was. Matter of fact, to go ahead into prison stuff, but I won't. It was about. I think it was. I was at Tomoka then, and my brother, youngest brother, brought my mother to see me. First I'd ever seen her since I went to jail, and this was like 25 years later. And so when she came, she talked to me. She says she wanted to apologize. She said, because I always favored your brother and I really didn't want you around. So, as a kid, I guess you unconsciously know that, but I didn't know it personally. So she did ask me to forgive her for that, which I was Christian by then. I said, sure, no problem.
Your mom had a favorite?
Yeah, my brother, he's a year younger than me, and she always, my father accused her of it too. Said, why do you treat him so bad? And the next one, you treat him, he gets everything.
Right.
So she wanted to clear that up. As a kid, you don't really know. I don't think about that stuff.
But you say you felt it though.
On the inside, obviously, I probably did, but I didn't really. I didn't really think about it that much. I didn't pay attention to it. I was too busy doing all my other stuff.
Yeah, and the reason I said anything about that because my mom has a favorite, and everybody knows it. You better believe it. So
I never had that.
So Joe, we're leaving out your temperament. I mean, right now we see Cool Joe, but in your younger years, what would Joe look like at 20?
At 20. Okay, now you're talking. Now that's when if I always turned out to be like my father once I started drinking. I would get violent and get in fights. Last time I saw my father before I came to Florida, got jail and everything. The last thing he said, "Hey, let's go." It was Brass Lantern was another real bad bar. He said, "Let's go down to the bar, Brass Lantern, and start a fight." So that's just how he was. And I said, Dad, I'm not really ready for that. I was too drunk by then. But I grew up with a father that was violent. I became the same way, though I didn't really realize what was influencing me. But every guy wants to have the love of their father. We may not know it, we may not acknowledge it, but I always wanted to hear him say, "I love you," but he never would. And so I guess that's one of the things that drove me into sports and the other stuff. It eventually drove me into the tough guy neighborhood, hanging out with the hoods. Because at least there's some acceptance. But other than that, I don't know. I never really think about it much. Once I became Christian, I put that stuff behind me.
Right. Were you part of any other groups while you were growing up? Any organizations?
No. Not other than the super brainos that I didn't fit in with.
Right. And so your time in the military?
Okay, I was a surgery tech for 4 years. So most of the time we were dressed in, the cap and gown kind of deals, and I would work inside the surgery. I had something most of them didn't have. I was able to pay attention when it had nothing to do with me. So the surgery tech has to be alert, and the surgeon has to know he can put his hand out, and they get what they want without having to ask for it. Well, I was there. I knew ahead of time because I was okay with just sitting there waiting for him to ask for the next thing. Most surgery techs drift off when it isn't involved with them personally, and that's where I had an advantage. I just could pay attention. That's all. I wasn't that smart. I just could pay attention.
Were you given that job? Did you volunteer for that job, or you just felt the need to do it?
Well, when you first go in the military, you go to boot camp. And the reason I was 21, my brother went in when he was 18. He was PJs, they call them, pararescue. They were special forces in Vietnam. And so I thought, you know what? I might as well go in. So when I went, I wanted to be a PJ right like he was. And it turned out I could outrun, even at 21, I could outrun anybody on the base, but I couldn't outswim them. And so and say when they called, said they wanted me to go back again and say, man, later for that. When you're 21, you just don't have the same drive. So that it was a medical field, so that's why they chose to put me into surgery. And so I went to Lackland Air Force Base, I think, or Shepherd Air Force Base to do that training, and then on up to Andrews Air Force Base for 4 years.
So, Joe, may I ask you, how long did you serve in the military?
4 years to the day.
4 years to the day. And you got out of the military. What was life like post-military?
See, this was during Vietnam. There was still a lot of protests going on.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what was life like for Joe during these times in America? What was life like for Joe post-military in those times in America?
Okay. Because when I first got out, I still had the short hair. Okay. And all the people that I hung around with, they thought I was a narc. They thought I was an undercover agent or something for trying to bust them for their drugs because you had to have long hair and all the other stuff, right? I will say this. When I was still growing up, actually, when I was at home before I came to Florida, my life was spiraling down. And the last ditched effort, I actually went to a church. It was a Methodist church, I think. And it was my hometown, small town. And the guy said, well, who's here for the first time? Well, obviously, I'm the only one there. It's different than what they're used to. So I stood up and introduced myself. Now you know what a stage whisper is? When somebody whispers, but with the intent everybody hear them whispering. Mm-hmm. So the lady right behind me said, if he knew anything or he cared anything about us, he'd get that haircut and he'd put on different clothes. And I heard that. I thought, well, this ain't it then. Because, I thought, well, maybe God's it. But after I heard this, no, this ain't where I belong. Mm-hmm. So, I often thought when they saw the newspaper 2 weeks later in the hometown, had first, right on first page on the top, that I just killed 2 men. And I was there when they were ridiculing me 2 weeks before that. I don't blame them. I did what I did, but that was what turned me away from searching God. And I often wonder how many people we can run off if we don't show them love and respect and honor the person that comes in off the street. May not smell that good, may not look that good, may all kind of stuff. But hey, they're one God died for.
You said 2 weeks later, life took a turn, right?
Yeah.
Big turn. I take it you ended up in the county jail or something?
I was in the county. I was in the discipline cell. These were the guys that fought everywhere in the jail and they didn't know what else to do with them. So it was an 8-man cell. They just threw them in there and said, best man win. Now, the hole was actually at the end of this little cell there. It sounded like we're getting a submarine or something, the way they had to open this door and open that door. Yeah, I was in the tough guy cell. But I never had any trouble from them.
Joe, what year?
Trouble.
What year were we talking about now?
We're talking about 1976.
1976. And you got put in the tough guy cell.
Yeah.
Did you think you deserved to be in there at that time? Because they just wouldn't put anybody in there. Do you think you was the tough guy that they knew you was a tough guy?
It was some of that, yeah. But the other thing is I was so out of control. They came 4 times a day to give me 100 milligrams of Thorazine. And it still didn't help. I still couldn't sleep. I was, well, when we get to talk about what turned me around, it was in that county cell, that jail. I love it because I still have jailhouse religion all these years later. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't think our audience understand what the effects of Thorazine, what it's supposed to do and what it didn't do for you.
Okay, we had different names for it. We said it was a 3-hour bologna sandwich. One of the ones you get. It slows you down so far and makes you almost turn into a gummy or something. It can't harm. To most people, it never affected me because I was just too wired up. I was out there. It didn't help at all.
Yeah, and I've actually seen I've seen men drool.
Yeah.
From the side effects of that particular medication, and so I understand it.
Yeah.
And why are you in the county jail during this time anyway?
That was the only time I was in the county jail. The first and only time.
Picked up on the charge?
Yeah. Right then was when I got the that might have been why I didn't have any trouble with it. When the sheriff's deputy read through the county bars, because we had bars besides all our doors.
Mm-hmm.
And when they heard my the counts against me, I think they might have said, we'll just leave this guy alone.
Right. How long were you in the county?
I was in for just about a year.
About a year.
Yeah. You know, one of the things so interesting about how God does things, we're going to get that later, but I actually ended up becoming a, what do they call those guys that go around serving everybody? Trustee. Mm-hmm. I ended up, they had me in the officer's dining room. And because back then in D-Land, that's where they had the courtroom too. I ended up serving the judge that finally sentenced me. Mm-hmm. So it was, some of those things are just almost too hard to believe, but actually to see God, once I was turned around, he started to show me how real he was.
Joe, I'm not gonna let you get away with that. So listen to this. Didn't I hear you say that you had a child at an early age?
Yes, a daughter in 1969. Yeah, one of those things that still heartbreaking. I don't bring them up very often.
1969, and how old were you when the child was born?
Let's see, I didn't turn 21. I was about 19.
19.
Yeah, and the ex-wife, who later divorced me, obviously, she had graduated from college, so I dropped out to put her through their last year.
Joe, your story already sounds like it's full. It sounds like you had, there was favor shown in your life. You was going to pretty good school. You had been acknowledged as a track star. You served the country, which we thank you for. You were married. You had a kid. So in your eyes, in your mind, how did you view your life at that particular time?
I don't know that I spent much time thinking about it. I guess I was one of those people that just did life as it came along.
Mm-hmm.
It all came crashing down, but I didn't know that it was. I'd already started using drugs though, and the ex-wife didn't want me around if I was going to do that.
Right. And what were we talking? We're talking heroin or cocaine?
Later on, yeah. But right then it was just marijuana.
Just marijuana and of course alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. And so with your relationship with your ex-wife, was it sorrowful, or were there moments of joy in there? Or it had to be because you married her.
Yeah. Well, actually, she was pregnant, and we didn't have a real wedding because we were in college.
Mm-hmm.
I just drove down to Wilmington, North Carolina. I think got married there, and her parents weren't happy, but we got married. We went back and started life, but she was in her just before they graduate, they go to a school. She was in gym.
Mm-hmm.
She was and also park and recreation. A lot of times she wasn't there all week. I don't know. That's a tough question.
Right.
Well, let me dial back a little bit. So you're in the county jail, right, Joe?
Yes, sir.
You're in the county jail. You're awaiting your fate. What are you thinking? You got serious charges being alleged against you that you're charged with.
Right.
You got to go to court. You have to meet the justice system. Where's your mind at then, and how does that go? How does that turn out once you do meet your fate in court? And
you know what? If you give me a couple minutes, because here's the interesting part. Because one of the guys that was from the bottom in Daytona, that's like the hood section, he was in there, but he had a Gideon New Testament. I'd never seen one before. And he saw how troubled I was. So he come up, he said, I think this might help you. So my first thought was, when I started looking through it, I said, you could have tobacco back then in the jail. So I said, man, I could roll me some rip with this. So that was because I was a heathen, so I didn't know any better. But I started reading it, and can't tell you to this day what I was reading, but all of a sudden, hell became real to me. And hell's what I deserved. Hell's where I was going. And I thought, man. So I just kept on reading. And I remember one time my grandmother said, "You want to go to Daily Vacation Bible School?" I said, "No." And she said, "Well, they got cookies and Kool-Aid." I said, "Well, that's a winner for a kid at 12." So I went. I didn't think I was paying any attention at all. We were fighting, throwing stuff at each other. But here I was with hell's real. I'm going there, and all of a sudden, it was if I could hear her voice, and I could see that little felt board that she used. And she took the letter A and she said, "Admit you're a sinner and ask God to forgive you for your sins." I'm hearing her voice now, and I'm seeing this little chalk felt board. And she took the letter B and she says, "Believe Jesus Christ died on the cross for your sins." I didn't make any sense then, but I mean, I'm hearing it. She took the letter C and she said, "And confess him as Lord and Savior of your life." And so, as a criminal, I mean, when you're in all this stuff and you're in a lot of trouble, you think, man, I can beat this thing. That's how you're thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hell's where I'm going. I deserve it, but there's a way out of this thing. But I had just this one thing. It was a thing for my whole life. God, if there was a God, if he existed, I believed he would not forgive a murderer. I didn't think he would forgive a murder. And so I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I spent 2 weeks of pure hell. It was so bad I gave away my chicken. So that ought to tell you something. And so, and then my cousin in Pennsylvania was a Christian. I didn't know. She had her pastor who moved down to Florida, had him come see me in D-Land.
You said that you were serving the judge that sentenced you. During that time, what the relationship had you called out to God?
Yes, I was already a Christian by then.
By then, you had already accepted Christ while you were in the county jail?
Yeah, yes, I did. Still living that jailhouse religion too.
I hear that. And so and the reason I'm asking that because we want to start getting into the mindset you had that caused you to commit those crimes, the crime of murder.
Okay.
So, because we look at your life and there's no indications of, hey, I'm going to do this, my soul is hurting. There's really nothing there. The next segment, Joe, we want to go into detail about your mind, your mentality of how this life you were living turned into a life that would eventually cost some people their lives. Is that okay?
Okay. Sure.
This has been the Depth of Prison podcast, brought to you by Lean On Me USA. I'm here with Oswald Nubo and also our special guest, Joe Miller. This has been the Depth of Prison podcast, but around here we say, choose life.